Yo, so everyone knows that Blue Tree Harlowe struggles when it comes to bossing damage, but at level 60 at UVH 6, as you can see, the bossing damage is actually not terrible. This is using the blue action skill, so it's not as bad as I thought it would be. But when it comes to the bossing damage, this is about as much as you're gonna get when you're using the blue action skill. So what we're gonna do instead is I have two builds for you. First, I have one build where we are spec'd all the way down to a capstone in the blue tree, and we are spec'd all the way down into a capstone in the red skill tree. So we can switch between our blue action skill and our red action skill whenever we want, which means we have access to things like neutron capture. So you can see here I'm going to swap my action skill from the blue one to the red one, and now I'm using a chroma accelerator, and I have neutron capture, and I have crazy bossing damage all in the middle of this fight. And the other build specs all the way down into a capstone in the green skill tree, which means we have access to infinite crit in that build. So this is what the red tree damage looks like when you're using the chroma accelerator, and this is when we are spec'd fully into a blue capstone and into the green capstone, and we swapped over to use infinite crit in our build instead of using the blue action skill. So both of these builds are really fun. I personally prefer using the blue action skill spec with the red one as well, so I can swap between the chroma accelerator with neutron capture and the blue action skill, which is the 0 point. I prefer that one. I find it feels better to use the blue action skill with the skills that you get in the red tree because it gives you a lot more skill damage. But if you prefer using the green tree as your secondary action skill, then that totally works too. Both of these builds are great options. It lets you use the blue tree to its full extent and gives you access to bossing damage through the other action skills when you want it. So without further ado, let's get into the breakdown. Okay, so the new Blue Tree Harlowe build. Now, as I did say, it does feel better to spec most of your points into the other two trees besides the blue tree, and that is because there are not a lot of skill points in the blue tree that give you a lot of damage, specifically not a lot of single target damage. Bossing is the main issue when it comes to running the blue tree or speccing a full blue tree build. So we are going to be speccing a lot of our points into the other trees. Now this is what I would call the blue-red build. So we are speccing in the blue tree, but also into the red tree a lot. And what this means is you can switch your action skill whenever you want to get that crazy bossing damage like I showed you. So we'll start with the blue tree, as this will pretty much stay the exact same for both the red-blue and the green-blue spec. So we're starting with 5 points in Make Extraordinary. This gives you up to 60% crit damage with your skills. It's pretty much a must on every Harlowe build. It's a very strong skill. Next, we're going to be throwing 5 points in a Bright Future, giving us more fire rate. This is really important because it synergizes really well with the red tree action skill, because we're going to be going neutron capture, which synergizes crazy well with fire rate, so we are speccing into that, as well as it does actually feel really good just running the blue tree with the extra fire rate. It gives you a lot more damage, and it feels very nice, so that is very good. Then we're going to throw 1 point in a ripple effect. This is just quality of life. It makes entangling enemies easier, which is very nice. We'll throw 1 point in negative entropy, so we can throw 3 into precision engineering. This is the highest crit hit damage you will get per point, I think, out of every character in the game as of right now. So these points are really high value. 30% crit hit damage for 3 points is a lot, so we want that. Next, we're going down into the next part of the blue tree, which I will have to explain. I explained in my last video, but essentially none of these skills down in the bottom of these trees here, I'll hover over them slowly, give you really any extra damage, specifically any single target damage. The only points that give you extra damage in both of these trees on the left and on the right are this one here in Discrete Math giving you splash damage, which I did take advantage of in my last blue tree build, and this point here, experimentation. But this is not only is it flat damage, but it's AoE on multiple entangled targets. It doesn't count for single target damage. So none of these speccing into these trees, feels really bad, especially when we're trying to solve the bossing problem that the blue tree has. So we're going to be speccing into Unstable Isotope, giving us bonus cryo damage as a kill skill. We have no way to proc kill skills besides killing enemies. So when you're fighting a single target boss, you do want to be making sure that you are killing enemies to have this active at all times. It feels very good, specifically when you're running the blue tree action skill. When you're running the red action skill, you don't really need to worry about it because your damage is more than enough as it is. But when you're running the blue tree, you definitely want to keep those kills stacked. Next, we're going to run Keep Ice on that. This gives you a bunch of lifesteal and overshield because we're dealing so much cryo damage. So this feels really, really good. Then we're going to go Flash Freeze. Now, this actually synergizes with a couple of things in the other action skills, and I'll talk about that when we get to them. But this is a really fun skill, not only when you're using the blue tree, but it's also very fun when you're using the other action skills in general. It's just a fun skill to go. And then we're going to throw 1 point and a triple point, basically just giving us more cryo damage when we're dealing cryo damage, and we deal cryo damage when we're not. We're basically just getting more of the damage that we want, which is the cryo damage. All right, now we're speccing into the red tree here. The only 3 points, legitimately, the only 3 skills that will benefit our single target damage in this bottom tree are these 3. So we're going to be speccing all into it. This one gives us Fire Rate, which again, Neutron Capture synergizes incredibly well with Fire Rate. Then we're getting Action Skill Damage. Again, Neutron Capture or Chroma Accelerator, Neutron Capture benefits greatly from that as well. And then we're getting some Elemental Damage, which our cryo damage is going to benefit from quite a bit, as well as just all of our damage in general. Then we're going to the left side. We are getting 5 points in Practical Applications to give us 35% skill damage. And then this is really what we're speccing down here for. We convert all of our Chroma Accelerator damage to cryo damage. Now this build, if you haven't noticed or if you haven't been following my builds, this build is pretty much identical. It's very, very similar to my cryo neutron capture Harlowe build, and that's essentially what it is. You can use the cryo neutron capture, or you can use the blue tree action skill, and both feel really, really, really good with this build. This is the spec that I prefer to run over the blue green spec that I'll show you after this. This is the one that I prefer. It feels really, really good. But to continue on, we're throwing 5 points into Mechanical Brilliance for more skill damage, so our skills are really going to be hurting. And then we're finishing up with 5 points in Rounding Up. When you deal action skill damage to an enemy, you get bonus gun damage for each enemy your action skill has damaged. So this feels really, really nice. Not only with this red action skill, but also it feels really good with the blue action skill. Gives you a lot of damage. It gives you 50% gun damage at max stacks, which this is super easy to stack with the blue action skill because the AoE on the blue action skill is fucking insane. And then our last 2 points, you can throw them anywhere. You can throw them wherever you want. I think a good spot to throw them would be Cryodynamics. You could throw a couple points from Bright Future into here, or to fill out Cryodynamics, and throw the other 2 points to max that out. I just threw them in a Momentum for some extra crit hit damage. Really do whatever you want with it. They're not super pivotal, but getting more damage is really what you want, specifically with this build. The augments we're going to be running, and capstone, obviously the capstone for the blue tree is going to be Cold Plunge. This one feels really good. I really enjoy using it a lot compared to the other 2 capstones, so it is convenient that it's in the only tree that actually gets damage. But also your augment. I prefer Inertia. I really like using Inertia. But you can use whatever augment you want. Cold Storage is fun to use. You can use Strange Attractor if you want, or Peer Review. You can use any of the of the augments, but Inertia is the one that I love the most. And as for the red tree, when you spec into the red tree, of course, you're going to go down to the Shattering Light for your capstone. I enjoy using this one. I think it's really fun. But my biggest complaint with it is because you have 5 shots, you do spend a lot of time shooting out those shots, which you could be spending shooting your gun instead. And then we're going to be going Neutron Capture with that as well. You can mess around with all of these different augments as well, and they are a lot of fun, but if you do want that mega bossing damage, you'll want to spec in a Neutron Capture. But I recommend messing around with the different augments, specifically for mobbing or just for messing around if you're not looking for the highest damage possible. The augments are so much fun to play around with, so I would give it a whirl. Now we're going to be taking a look at the items and gear for specifically this tree, this build. I'm just going to run through it super, super quickly because I will be doing it also for the blue-green spec. But The best weapon for this build easily is the Flash Cyclone. This is the best cryo weapon in the game, I believe. I don't think there's another weapon that's nearly as strong that does cryo damage as the Flash Cyclone. So this is your favorite weapon for sure when it comes to using the blue tree or the blue action skill, but it's also very, very good with both the red action skill and the green action skill. So it's just really good for this build overall because we are getting so much bonus cryo damage and benefits to cryo damage. The cryo damage that we're dealing with this weapon is getting a lot of benefits, so this weapon is very, very good. If you watch any of my videos, you'll know, especially when it comes to using neutron capture, I'm horny for the Mad Lad. The Mad Lad is the must whenever you are using neutron capture. It is non-negotiable. I love it so much. It's great for mobbing. It's great for bossing when you have neutron capture. It's just great with neutron capture in general. So if you're going to run the red action skill at all, you gotta fucking use the Mad Lad at some point. It's so good. Next, we got a Wombo combo. This is just for vile enemies, but also very good with neutron capture. Very good in general for the AoE. If you get a cryo one, that's great too for the bonus cryo damage. And then the Lucian's Flank. Really, you can go whatever weapons you want. These are the ones that I generally run because they're all high fire rate. They synergize well with neutron capture, and they're just good overall. The fire rate does feel very, very nice, but it's not necessary. But for specifically neutron capture, the chroma accelerator, yeah, you definitely want as much fire rate as possible. Okay, so for the rep kit, we're going to be going a triple bypass with elemental affinity. The triple bypass I have with, what is it called? Now with caffeine. This synergy is really, really good. It gives you action skill cooldown whenever you use a rep kit, and this rep kit gives you 3 charges. So if your action skill ever does go down and you're struggling to get it back up, you can just spam 3 triple bypass rep kits and you'll have it pretty much back. This one comes with elemental affinity, giving us even more cryo damage, so very, very helpful. The ordnance we're going to be going is the bismuth tip dagger. Of course, this benefits our cryo damage. All of our cryo like this build is pretty much centered around cryo damage, so feels very good to use. Very, very nice. Next, we're going the Skeptic. Now, you might be going, why are we going the Skeptic? And that's because we have no way to get our action skill back on this build. However, the Skeptic has on it that shooting enemies with an active status effect restores 2% of your action skill cooldown. So with all the fire rate benefits we're getting, you can see where I'm headed with this. We're getting a lot of action skill cooldown restore, as well as a couple of other quality of life things like whenever you slam an enemy, you're getting those radiation and cryo darts, which are very fun to see. I like the visual clutter. Sue me. I don't know. I like seeing all the shit flying across my screen. I think it's really fun. So that's really nice. And you're also getting the stasis damage, the gun damage from this roll in particular is giving me gun damage, so that's nice. And the stun lock I think is really fun as well, this skill here. It does also entangle enemies, which is nice, but I think it's just fun to use, so I really like the Skeptic. But you can use other class mods if you'd like. I would just be wary that your action skill restore relies very heavily on the Skeptic for this specific spec. We have no action skill restore besides the Skeptic, so that's what we're going to be going. Next, we're going to be going a Siphon Watts for dinner. If you got one with Siphon and Amp, then you're goated. I don't, but that is what we are running, probably still the best shield in the game. And then for your enhancement, you can go whatever you want. I'm just running this one. It seems to be pretty good, and it synergizes really well with the Mad Lad, so I like this one because I'm obsessed with the Mad Lad. But you can go whatever enhancement you want. This one is really dependent on whatever guns you want to use. And as for firmware, I'm pretty much using the same firmware on both of the builds. I'm just going 3 into Skillcraft. Is this the perfect spec? For the blue tree, it feels really good. The skill damage feels very, very good. When you're slamming people around, you definitely feel and notice the extra damage. For my secondary, I have 2 into bullets to spare. This is really coming from, again, that cryo neutron capture build, because I did have all of my points spec'd into bullets. I had 3 spec'd into bullets to spare before, and it helps a lot when you're running the red tree. But it's not necessary. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what would be best here as a secondary. So run whatever firmware you want. It does not need to be perfect. The build still feels amazing with just 3 into skillcraft. And I do think that 3 into skillcraft is so diverse, and like it's difficult to find a build that doesn't benefit from 3 into skillcraft. So it's really safe. 3 into skillcraft is all I think is really important. Moving on to specializations, I have 1 into now with caffeine, 1 into a honed mind, giving us bonus skill damage and skill crit damage and skill crit chance. This is skill, not just action skill. This is actually a typo. Then we're going Groundbreaker. This helps when you're running the blue tree and you need that extra burst. As you've seen, with just the blue tree alone and Groundbreaker, you can actually get some decent bossing damage. It's just not the crazy bossing damage you expect from Harlowe. So it does feel good to go Groundbreaker. It kind of makes up for that, for the downfall of the blue tree. And then we're going the best defense. We're going to be pretty much full skill. We're going to be pretty much full shield and full health at all times from not only our siphon on our Watts for dinner, but from this keep ice on that. It gives you a lot of healing with all the cryo damage that you're doing, so that is very nice. All right, and now I'll show you the blue-green spec that I like to run. If you prefer the green action skill over the red action skill, then this would be the build that I would run. It does feel a little bit worse, I found, like not by much, but I didn't like this as much as I did like the blue with the red. So when I was using the blue action skill with this build, it didn't feel as good as when I was using the blue action skill with the red build, if that makes sense. But it still feels very good. So it's still the best kind of all-around working thing that I could put together. I really like how it feels. So the blue tree is spec the exact same. However, if you'd like, you can also spec, instead of specing 5 points in a bright future for the fire rate, you can spec into parallel circuit, instead getting 30% gun damage. It's up to you. You're either getting fire rate after you re-trigger your action skill or gun damage. Both are 30%. Both are very strong. You can spec either of those. But besides that, the blue tree is exactly the same. Everything is exactly the same. I literally didn't change anything. I literally haven't even swapped out my class mod because, spoiler alert, we won't be using the same class mod. That's the only thing that's really going to change with this build besides the skill points and the weapons. So for the green tree, we're going 5 points in a momentum, getting crit hit damage. This is the infinite crit Harlowe build. We are going to be getting like crits on every shot here when you are running the green action skill. So the crit hit damage is very nice. Next, there's nothing that's going to benefit our damage here except for neutron decay. But we're not really spec that much in irradiation damage, so we're not irradiating enemies, so we're not going to benefit much from this gun damage. So instead, we go mass function. You get reload speed for every entangled enemy. Now, when you're running the blue tree build, I will say this you notice. Because you entangle so many enemies so easily with the blue action skill, when you're using the blue action skill, you feel this reload speed. When you're using the green action skill, you don't have to reload because of critical funding, so you don't feel this as much. So these points are kind of not as used, but the green skill or the green action skill is still so broken and so strong that you don't need these points into more damage. You have so much damage as it is. Next, we're going 3 points into creative overflow. You have like I said, you have so many ways to keep up your overshield because of the siphon on our Watts for dinner, and keep ice on that with the overshield and the lifesteal. So you get a lot of gun damage, you get a lot of value from the creative overflow here, and then we're throwing 2 points to confirmative reality. Now, what this does, this gives us a way to restore our action skill, which means we don't need to go the skeptic. And that's very, very big because there is one class mod that is the most broken class mod with Harlowe with the green tree. Everyone's thinking of it, but I guess we'll save it until a little bit later. Next, we're throwing 5 points into Harlowe's certainty principle. It gives us extra gun handling. It's really just to get down here. You can throw them in a gamma ray burst. I prefer them over here instead. And we're going to throw 3 into critical funding. Now, I wish I could throw more, but I do want to get down to group study. So we're going to put our points into this tree instead, and we're going to throw 5 into excited state, giving us more crit hit damage, and also giving us that infinite crit with the nuclear winter interaction. So when you have the flux generator active and nuclear winter as your augment, as well as group study, you don't need group study, but it stays on top of you and it makes it easier to use. You get infinite crits whenever you have this skill a point in this skill. So with this setup, you will be getting infinite crits, and then critical funding will give you a 15% chance on those crits to restore an extra 3 ammo to your gun. So it feels very, very good. We're also going to throw the other 5 points into refraction. Yeah, this ricochet just feels very, very good in general, even when you're using the blue action skill. But obviously it feels very, very good as well when you're using the green action skill. This skill was recently fixed. I think it was bugged before. It wasn't working properly. And now it does work properly and it feels very, very good. So this is the spec for the green tree. And we're going to be going nuclear winter with group study. But again, I'm a big fan of messing around with all the augments, messing around with all of that stuff. This is obviously going to be your big damage, and with the infinite crit and all of that stuff, and the infinite ammo regen, sticky stacking is going to be your best bossing damage here. Now, they are nerfing sticky stacking, like I said, so sticky stacking is a little bit less viable, but you still have so much damage on this build anyway. It's actually kind of bugs out the game, as I'll show a little bit later, but at least for me, maybe it's my PC, but it bugs out the game because of the amount of damage that you have. So you have more than enough damage with this spec as well. Now, as for weapons with the blue-green build, similar story. I wouldn't run the Mad Lad. I don't like the COV weapon with the green tree because the infinite ammo kind of has that anti-synergy. The weapon of choice that I would use, I love the Bonnie and Clyde. I think it's a lot of fun to use. The Flash Cyclone is obviously also still king here. You're getting a lot of cryo damage still and cryo damage benefits. So the Flash Cyclone is still very strong. You can still use the Wombo Combo. You can use the Lucian's Flank. Multi-pellet shotguns, things with multi-pellets are also very strong. Things like the Hellwalker or things like a bod or weapons with dataless shotgun on them. Those will do really, really well here because they will give you multiple chances to crit per shot to give you multiple chances to restore your ammo. So it makes maintaining your ammo in your gun a lot easier because we don't have full points into critical funding here. So that does feel very, very good, but run whatever weapons you want. Then for the class mod, of course, we're going to be going the Phlebotomist. The Phlebotomist is Harlowe's best class mod with the green tree. 100%, there's no better class mod. It's very, very strong for that bossing damage that you're looking for. Not only is it strong when you're using the green action skill, but it's also very strong using the blue action skill too. If you put an enemy up into stasis, you can take advantage of the bonus kinetic damage that you're getting from the Phlebotomist, and that feels very good. Another class mod that I would run would be like a Trooper, if you want to introduce some ordnance into your build as well. That's something that you can go for. You could do something like get a cryo waterfall and have a Trooper and just be spamming out those waterfalls as well on top of everything else that you'll be doing. But the Phlebotomist is probably the most damage. Mind you, I don't have a great one, but it does get points into multiple things that we like Unstable Isotope. You can get one with 5 points into this, and I feel like that would go hard. You could get one with 5 points into Excited State, giving you more crit hit damage, or you could get more fire rate, or you could get... The last one's probably the worst of them all, but you get some more action skill duration. This feels good with the green tree, but honestly, I have only 1 point in here, and it's more than enough. So I would try and minimize the amount of points into that skill. But regardless, that is still very strong, and everything else is legit exactly the same. So we're still doing the same firmware. We're still doing the same specializations. You can mess around with this if you want. You can mess around with these, but this is kind of the spec that I'm running, and it works great. So yeah, that's the spec for you. Okay, I feel like things are still a little bit confusing, so I just want to clarify and say that with both of these setups, if you're spec'd either of the skill trees that I just showed you, that means that you can swap your action skill from either the blue tree action skill, or you can swap it to either the red or the green tree action skill, respectively, depending on what spec you're going, what setup you went. So this means that when you're mobbing, you can run the blue tree, and if you want a little bit more bossing damage, or you just want to switch it up and run a different tree, then you can swap your skill tree over to either the red skill tree, to the red action skill, or to the green action skill to get either the Chroma Accelerator with Neutron Capture, or the Infinite Crit Harlowe build. and you have access to both of those at the same time. So when you want to use the blue action skill, you use the blue action skill, and then when you want to switch to the red action skill, you don't have to respec. You can just go into your menu and swap to the red action skill, and boom, you have a very viable Chroma Accelerator build with neutron capture, or you have a very viable infinite crit build on Harlowe. So yes, my solution for bossing on Blue Tree Harlowe is to swap to another tree. Legit. It's to swap to the other action skill. If you want more bossing damage, you swap over to the other action skill. It's that simple. Now, I did try to make good comparable damage builds using just the blue action skill. However, none of the damage compared to what the red action skill or what the green action skill could provide. Your damage just wasn't as strong as those other builds on Harlowe. So to me, it didn't feel right to create builds where I wanted to run them because they just weren't as strong as these other action skills. But I did mess around with ideas like getting high fire rate weapons and a lot of action skill cooldown restore, so you could spam the 0 point on a boss and get a lot of the skill damage. But that damage wasn't that great. So this is the solution that I came to. I hope you guys like the build. If you do, leave me a comment. I'd appreciate a like, and if you'd want to subscribe, and I hope to catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.